Have you ever seen a couple of older guys and think to yourself, man, I bet they've seen a thing or two. Wish I could sit down with them and hear what kind of stories they have to tell. Well, Bubba's got a couple of those guys to do just that. I hope you like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, because today's guests will remind you of the odd couple. These grumpy old men lookalikes are ready to take us all on a trip down memory lane to a time when life was much simpler, when kids played ball at the sandlot, when young boys had the freedom to have adventures like carrying BB guns and shooting sparrows, or getting a quarter from mom to go buy bread at the store and have enough change to buy some candy. The good old days. Maybe Bubba is right. Maybe we do need to go back to go forward. But time doesn't stand still. Jim Gillespie and Dale Rueber grew up and did some pretty big things. Besides volunteering with the Steve Brown Art Center and hosting the Steve Brown Art Center podcast, Dale served in the Marines and got a couple of college degrees using the GI Bill. And Jim took the first girls 6-on-6 basketball team into Russia after the fall of the communist government. Where does he find these guys?
Gosh, the man has talent.
Here's your host, Bubba Seaman!
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. What is up? Welcome back for another episode of the fastest growing, real life, no phony social media filters podcast on the market. We're looking forward to big things this year. One episode, one conversation at a time. And before we get to today's episode and my special guest, you can see I got two of them here. That's right, two guys in the basement today. I got to remind everybody, whether you're listening or watching, that's right, you can watch in stunning high definition. Wave to the audience, fellas, right there. There they are. Look at that. Look at those handsome devils right there. Let's see. I lost my spot. That's the drawback of looking at the camera. You lose your spot. You guys probably don't know it, but you guys and Blake actually pushed me over the edge to get me into the whole video podcast market because your guys' was so well done. But anyway, my audience, please don't forget to subscribe, follow, like, wherever you're listening or watching, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Leave us that 5-star rating. That is crucial. They keep going up, but we need more. Click the bell to be notified about every single new episode. Tell us what you think, whether you like or dislike, by leaving a comment in the comments section. That's how we continue to grow and reach more and more people. Follow our Instagram and our Facebook if you want to see those funny reels like that ice bath reel where I got in there as an overweight middle-aged man and my kid said don't ever do it again. Or you want to see some other funny pictures, or you want to be a part of some of our merch giveaways, follow our Instagram and our Facebook. Share with all your friends on your social media. Show off your magnificent taste by sporting some of our merch. Today's guests are leaving with some. Well, actually, they're not because I don't have their sizes done. But they will be getting some free merch just for coming on the podcast. But if you want some, maybe a shirt, maybe a hat, just email me, whatisuppodcast@gmail.com, and tell us what you want. And my wife, whatever size, color, she will hook you up. Trust me. She'll make it happen. And then I want you to send me a picture to that email address of yourself wearing your awesome gear out and about in the public. I also want to give a shout out and encourage all my listeners to go check out what Jim and Dale are doing with the Steve Brown Art Center, the creative heart of Buchanan County.
All right. That should be our. We should use that. Do you have that copyrighted, or did he write that for you? Oh,
Dale, are you listening? I read it. Our last podcast.
I don't listen.
Guys.
When you're talking, I don't listen. I'm thinking about what I'm going to say when it's my turn. See,
he's prepping of his response. He's not actually listening. Well, the rest of it's going to blow you away then.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, check out the Steve Brown Art Center, the creative heart of Buchanan County. It's something very near and dear to my guest today. The Steve Brown Art Center is a thriving community where art flourishes with dynamic exhibits and interactive workshops that spark creativity and passion. Discover a world of artistic inspiration at the Steve Brown Art Center. To learn more about the Steve Brown Art Center, just head over to their Facebook page and be sure to listen to Jim and Dale on the Steve Brown Art Center podcast based out of good old Jessup, Iowa over there. Once you guys have done all that, then you can sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. And let me tell you, if that was any indication, we got a good one for you today. These guys, I tell you. My guests today are a couple of just local good old boys from Jessup, the land of blue and orange. That's right, Jayhawk country. We're not going to hold that against them, are we, James? No. One of these guys reached out to me on Facebook last summer and invited me on their podcast, the Steve Brown Art Center podcast, and I accepted, and the word must have spread pretty quickly because I had a couple people reach out to me right away and kind of vouch for you guys. And they were right. It was a great interview. It was a fun time. We had some laughs, and we had some meaningful discussion. So if anyone missed that episode, we both have it up on our podcast platforms right now. Just go back to last. It was probably like around August, late August somewhere. We both published it. Go back and watch it. It was really good. And watch it on both platforms so we each get an extra view. So I figured it was time to return the favor and invite these guys over to Fairbank, and we'll just see what happens. So, of course, I'm talking about Jim Gillespie and Dale Rueber. What is up, guys?
I don't know. Do you have anything up, Gillespie? We got up this morning, so this is we're both old and retired, so this is earlier than we usually start getting around.
Okay.
But no, everything is going fine so far.
Good. Yeah.
Plenty of time though for things to go wrong.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I always put that in there.
Any day I have a chance to be with you two guys, I have a chance to laugh. It's a lot of fun. It's
Okay.
going to be a great day.
Good.
So.
Good. Are you guys curious about who that was around here that kind of reached out to me and said, "Oh, yeah, I can vouch for you"?
Yeah.
Oh, I always want to know those kind of
You
things.
want to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we all want to know who thinks
Well,
highly
yeah,
of us.
sure.
The rest of them, they can, go whatever. But Dwayne Foster reached out to me right away, and I'm not sure how the word spread. I don't know if I put it on social media that I got invited, and because when you put something on social media, it looks like a big, huge deal. Oh,
Yeah.
I got invited on this thing, and it's like all three of us are just regular guys trying to do something good, but because it's on the internet, it looks like a big deal. So yeah, Dwayne, I think, emailed me right away, or maybe me and him were talking about something, and he said, "Oh yeah, I go way back with Jim and had a lot of nice things to say about you and kind of mentoring him in his early days when he was over there and you were still teaching and coaching and stuff." And Jessica Dupre also said something to me, and she's actually the one that told me you do a lot of biking and stuff. She goes, "Did you guys talk a lot about cycling?" And I was like, "No, we didn't. Why? Was he a cyclist or something?" She goes, "Well, you did triathlons. He's a big bike rider." I was like, "Oh, okay. No, we didn't." It was there. Didn't come up.
My brother lives in Oldwine. He came with a couple other guys to Littleton. They were going to float down the Wapsie. And they got there and they found they didn't have an anchor. And there were some other people there in a boat. And so they were talking. The guy said, "Well, I can, I have an extra anchor here." And my brother said, "Well, would you lend it to?" He says, "My brother Dale Rueber lives in Jessup, not very far away from here," just to kind of vouch for him. "Oh," he said, "you're Dale Rueber's brother." And he said, what a wonderful guy I was. Gave him the anchor and this sort of thing so they could use it. So my brother's telling me this later, and I said, "Okay, who was that guy?" "Oh, I can't remember his name." "Oh, man."
I gotta know.
I want to know. Well, I never did find out. So there was one person in Jessup that vouched for me, and now I have no idea who it was. But I was so disappointed. So.
Well, yeah, my wife told me, she goes, "Yeah, Dale Rueber, that's probably Mrs. Rueber's husband, my 5th grade teacher. That's probably," and I was like, I don't know.
No, did she go to Dunkerton?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, that's her. Yeah.
So we put the pieces together and everything like that, and yeah, because we both went to school in Dunkerton. But
do you have anything bad to say about her? Or?
No.
Oh, okay,
all right.
Most
kids in 5th grade aren't. They're not warming up to school at that point. It's
okay.
Treachery. Or drudgery. I don't know what the right word is.
Treachery. Yeah. I think treachery is the word.
But she knew her. She knew her for sure.
They're after you all the time. So.
Yeah. So how is the art center going, and your guys' efforts to publicize it more with the podcast?
Yeah. It's going real well, Bubba. The neat thing about the art center, we established it to have to build a home where artists could live, and work on their trade, and not have to get a job at Walmart or Target or someplace like that. And one of the board members, Kara Masteller, she said, in order to get grants, you've got to get out and start doing other things.
Yep.
And so she said you got to present artists. So our first artist was actually Dale. Dale presented the history of Jessup at the Jessup Public Library, and we had around 50 people that
Well, more like 30, I think. We were expecting 3, and then had 30 show up, which surprised me. But yeah, it actually went really well. So
it did, and you know, we support musicians, we support painters. This last year now, we've had 2 artists in residence. Tim Kemmerer from Independence. He is a landscape painter, and he paints people as well. And our present artist is the American Lutheran Church in Jessup's husband's or minister in Jessup. I have that confused. The minister.
You'll get there.
The minister in Jessup's husband.
Okay.
They moved there from New Mexico, and he does.
what's his name?
Richard Moore Kelly. Thank you. Thank you.
Go. That's kind of an important detail.
Yeah.
I just love to hear him try to say the guy's name. So it's kind of fun. So
Well, because I confuse it every time.
Why?
yeah,
Why am I getting these like
the
Jack
hyphen.
Lemmon, Walter Matthau vibes here? I'm just getting these vibes from these guys.
it's the hyphen that does it to you. You know, when the hyphen. I'm sure. Does his last name hyphenated?
It
okay.
is.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Richard Moore Kelly.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, Bubba, that Richard is legally blind, and I will send you pictures of his paintings.
Oh my.
Presently, he's showing in M's Coffee Shop in Independence.
Okay.
He sent me his most recent painting yesterday that he's doing. He's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just a great guy. You need to meet him perhaps someday. Someday you may like to have him on as well.
So we've talked a little bit about how to kind of grow our following a little bit to show people what we're doing and stuff like that. And when you say that, it makes me think of different artists I've seen. Everyone says, like, yeah, there's Facebook, yeah, there's Instagram, but they say TikTok is this one that everyone watches the videos on. And if you can keep them kind of short, and so you see these videos of these artists who will just throw the paint on there first,
yeah.
and then they move the paint around, and before you're done, it's like a portrait of like Bill Belichick in stunning high definition or something. And it's like, how did they do? But they put it in a little TikTok video. Next thing you know, thousands of views because it was just catching what they were doing at first, and you had to follow it to the end. They speed it up or whatever. So I'm just thinking, if this guy is a blind artist, that might be and people tell me that all the time too. They're like, you want to get the podcast out there, that's what you got to do.
He's legally blind, but he still sees enough that he can walk through a room and do his art. And he does what you would call shapes. He uses geometric shapes and this sort of thing to make a work.
Okay.
And so
It's geometric art is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I'll have to check out, see what his stuff
because
is.
he doesn't use a cane or any. I mean, he sees enough that he can get around, but he's legally blind.
Right.
I suppose that's for driving and all that other kind of stuff.
Right.
And so
Yeah. A lot of people, when they hear that, it's kind of the same thing as legally deaf. They might have a little bit, a bare minimum. Okay, well, for those who might not know you guys, let's just tell the audience, kind of short answer, nothing super in-depth, a little bit about yourselves, each of you, age, family, career, hobbies, interests, stuff like that. We'll start with Dale over here.
I have to tell you how old I am? Okay.
Well, you don't have to.
Well, I'm not ashamed of being
as
50.
much as you want to reveal.
No. Well, actually, my family lived outside north of Fairbank when I was born.
Okay.
And my brothers went to school in Fairbank. But when I was 3 or 4, we moved to Hazleton to this old house. And so I grew up in Hazleton and went to Hazleton School through 9th grade, and then they reorganized with Old Wine. So I graduated from Old Wine, and that was a big change in my life in the fact that I had like 17 kids in my class at Hazleton. And we go to Owine, and there's hundreds and hundreds of kids in the high school. And in those days, they had no gymnasium, they had no auditorium. It was just the high school.
Sure.
And so the hallways were packed just full of people all the time as you tried to change classes. So that was a big change for me. But I grew up in a small Hazleton is like the size of Fairbank. We used to come and play baseball against Fairbank, and that was in a time when they had all the different towns had their own high school, And so there were a lot of different opportunities to play ball in Lamont or Brandon or wherever. And so, and baseball was my sport. I lived right across the street from the baseball diamond, so I was with her all the time.
Okay.
And played with older kids, younger kids, it didn't matter. We just played all the time. And so had the summer little league teams and that sort of thing. And
Okay.
we could all go to play in Independence, and we'd all fit in one car.
All right.
Because they didn't have those silly seatbelt restrictions, or
That was.
you had 3 kids sitting on one person's lap. And
We'll get into that a little bit about how you guys grew up in a
Yeah.
totally different world. But what'd you do for a career and stuff?
Well, I fumbled around and graduated from high school with no skills and no ambition, and so I don't know if people understand this, younger people won't, but this was the days of draft.
Okay.
And so if you're 18 years old and you could see and hear, see lightning and hear thunder, then you were eligible for the draft if you didn't have some kind of exemption, like going to college or married with 5 kids while you're 18 and this sort of thing.
Okay.
And so I joined the Marine Corps, and so I was 4 years in the Marine Corps. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I used the GI Bill. I got a BA and a master's degree in elementary education. And so then I taught elementary school for 33 years. And so that was my career.
I like it.
In the summertime, when in college in the summer, I worked for a company. We built steel grain bins.
Okay.
So we poured the cement pads, and then we put all the bolts in and built the grain bins. And then I did cement work then with Alan Wright and Jessup summertimes when we were off of school.
Sure.
And we did curb and gutter and driveways and this kind of thing.
Okay.
And then I accidentally got started with a master's degree program, so I could actually, because of the GI Bill, I could go to school in the summer and get paid for all my dependents, because I was a full-time student in the summer, so I get paid for all my dependents. So I had 3 kids and a wife, so I got money for that, plus they paid all the tuition and gave me expense money and this kind of stuff.
Wow.
And so I made more money going to college than I did shoveling cement all summer. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I figured out that's a better way of spending your time. And so that's kind of what I did until, and then after that, summertimes I spent just vacationing or with the kids or that sort of thing. So working every now and then, but not anything steady. So
okay, and you're retired now.
Oh yeah, this is my 19th year being retired.
What do you? Oh wow. So what do you like doing with your time today?
Well, I like watching old movies on Turner Classic Movies. They have no commercials, and I've been doing this forever. But even as a kid in high school, I would stay up late and watch old movies.
Okay.
And all kinds. And so I love classic movies.
Nice.
And some of the newer movies, I don't go to the theater as much as I used to.
Yeah.
But I do like movies.
Yeah.
And then I like to fish.
Okay.
And I like to read. I read a lot. And
there you
so
go.
and then I do the little household thing. If it snows, I shovel the snow.
All right.
And if it's the grass gets high, I mow the grass. Other than that, I'm pretty.
And that's retirement.
Pretty calm. That's retirement. Yes.
I like it. All right, Jim. Let's get kind of the what do they call it? The 50,000-foot view. Kind of tell my audience just a little bit about yourself. We'll get into it in depth, but kind of family, career, hobbies, passions, stuff like that now.
I grew up in Cresco, sort of a rival of Owine, at Northeast Iowa Conference. I grew up in a great neighborhood, a huge Catholic neighborhood.
Okay.
There were 60 kids in our neighborhood in a 4-block radius.
Wow.
And there were 2 Catholic churches in our town, an Irish Catholic church and a German Catholic church, and we would go across town and play against the
in sports.
Yeah, play against the German Catholics. But it was wonderful. I was an only child, and I could go to multiple houses and have multiple suppers. My mother would work the 3 to 11 shift, and my father drove truck.
Okay.
So I was alone a lot in the evening, and those Catholic mothers raised me. And,
Nice.
And it was wonderful. I had a lot of brothers and sisters when it came to that, although I was an only child. I graduated from Crestwood to Cresco. Everybody wants to call it Cresco. It's the Howard Winnebago Community School District. And went to Upper Iowa. I was thinking of this as Dale was speaking. In 8th grade, the social studies teacher, a man by the name of Oakley Natvig. He was fresh out of college, and he was our 8th grade basketball coach and social studies teacher. And I knew right then I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. Very few people know what they want to be. I mean, really know what they want to be at 14 years old, and I knew what I wanted to be. And it was
good for you.
Yeah, I was so lucky. Lucky. And I went and graduated from Upper Iowa, and
go Peacocks.
There you go. Played for Bill Prohaska a little bit. Actually, I was about the 15th guy on a 14-man bench, but got to travel once in a while.
Cool.
And it was fun. Coach Prohaska was wonderful to me. I grew up not far from Protivin, so I knew his father and knew the Prohaskas in Protivin.
Okay.
And Coach Prohaska already knew me, and he didn't hold that against me, Bubba. But I graduated from Upper Iowa, and I worked at Camp Courageous for about 18 months.
Nice.
And that was so good for me as a teacher, and as a human.
What's their mission? What's their?
They are to help mentally and physically handicapped kids. Allow them to have a vacation for a week, outdoors.
Yeah.
Canoe and kayak, fish, rock climb.
Yeah, do the stuff other kids can do easily, and now that's Camp Courageous is a place for them. It's kind of
it's wonderful.
Good for you.
My daughter worked there a couple of years. It was summers, and she's a special ed teacher. But they would have like all kids with muscular dystrophy there 1 week. And then kids that had young adults with brain injuries 1 week.
Okay.
And so I would ask her sometimes what the disease of the week was, which is not a very nice thing to say.
Oh, I get it.
But it was very interesting. And for her, she said the young men especially who had fallen off a bicycle, a motorcycle, had brain injury, and says they were so depressed and so frustrated because they knew that they used to be able to do these things, but now they couldn't. And she said that was very heartbreaking. But it's a wonderful place.
It is, and it takes special people to do that, to work with people like that. My wife was always, before she started working, before we moved to Fairbank, and she started working at Parkview Assisted Living, she had always worked either at Castle Hill School or for the county. I can't remember what they used to call it, but it was like I think what's the place on Dunkerton Road, west side of 63, and it was like one half was like the troubled kids, the detention center, and the other half was it had a name, Prairie View or something like that.
I know what you're talking about.
And just you get to know the people that work with handicapped, mentally challenged people like that, and it's, oh man, yeah, it takes a special person to do that for sure.
They're like they're little chicks. I mean, they defend them, they work for them.
Yeah.
People that work with special needs kids, they are such advocates for them. It's just wonderful to see.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, so I kind of want to dig in. Audience, you got any more questions? Oh, we don't have a live feed. That's right. So some people who really got their stuff together, they'll allow comments to come in and stuff. And no, that's not us. We're small time, low tech. What would Phil Robertson always say? I'm a low tech man in a high tech world.
Oh yeah.
All three of us agree.
Yeah.
And I grew up with some of this stuff. These guys, I mean, if you can do anything, that's an accomplishment.
Did you hear Jimmy Carter's grandson was giving a eulogy at his funeral the other day, and he said his early cell phone, he got a call, showed that it was from his grandfather, Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
And so he answered and said, "What's up?" And the guy said, "Who is this?" And he said, "Well, it's Jason." You know, he says, "You called me." He said, "No, I didn't call you." He says, "I'm taking a picture." And so, and he said, this guy is a nuclear scientist, he said. So,
oh my goodness.
so all of us have the same problem.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, yeah. Some people, like people at church, they just think I'm a whiz or something because I can do a couple little things. And then you got the kid that runs our live stream for church. I was like, no,
Yeah.
this kid's a whiz.
Yeah.
You know, it just goes by generation.
No, it's-
man. But yeah, let's go back. Like that's kind of a brief overview, but I like to go way back and kind of like give me some memories of growing up, and because I like to contrast that with what kids are growing up today. I mean, we're kind of hinting at it with the technology and things like that. Or you said 60 kids. Like till I moved up here to Iowa, I grew up in a bigger city, and yeah, you ride your bike down the street. The first, 10, 15 kids, those are the ones that hit the sandlot and play football. And I mean, it just you go home when the street lights come on. It's a totally different world these days. Like if I drive down this road and the Catholic Church has a big yard and there's only been a handful of times, or maybe if I drive past the elementary school and you see kids out there playing football, it's kind of a shock.
Right.
And it's like, man, we used to just do that all the time. Yeah. So what, give me some of that. Give me a glimpse into kind of what it looked like for you guys more as a childhood compared to today, you know?
So if I could speak on
Go
this,
right
I told you we had 60 kids in our neighborhood, and about a block and a half over there was a lot. It was Balk's lot.
Okay.
BALK. Balk's runs it's a dump truck company. They deliver sand and rock and stuff, but they had a huge lot, and before you could text and stuff, all you'd have to do was call one family. So you had 5 people from that family. Call one family and say, ball game in Balk's lot in an hour.
Okay. But now, were you guys in the day where the phone, like when you picked up the phone, it was multiple people on the
It was
line?
a party line at my house.
See, I never
Yeah, my
experienced
grandmother had. We didn't have it, but my grandmother had that.
that. Okay.
And
You
then-
remember that?
Yeah,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
had a, like, if her phone was like 2 long rings and went like ring, 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 that was her signal, that was for her.
Okay.
But something be like ring, 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 that was for the person up the road.
Okay.
And so you had to listen. Of course, you always listen to what the other person was
Well,
saying.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
that's what I've heard.
how you
You
got
want to
your
hear
news,
what's
yeah.
going on. Phil would talk about that kind of stuff, and he'd say, yeah, and then you get yelled at. They say,
Oh, yeah,
off
get off the
trying to have
phone, yeah. Or you say, if you want to make a call, you had to convince them that it was important, that they needed to hang up so you could make a call. And so,
So word spread quickly, though, you're
Oh,
saying.
yeah. So we'd have.
And it was game on.
Yeah, we'd have 5 people from the McCarville family. We'd have there were 11 kids in the Still family, and 7 of them would come and play. And then there were the Tituses and the Murrays, and every once in a while we'd let the girls play. If we needed a couple players, we'd let them join in. Then if it was a big deal, somebody would get a paved driveway, and we'd have basketball
basketball time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and then those were wonderful when they get a paved driveway.
Yeah.
We would have friends who went to Cresco Notre Dame, the Catholic school.
Okay.
And forgive me, Father Chirper, for saying this. They would leave the windows unlocked, and we would open the window and get in the gym as we got older. And so my friends and I broke into a lot of gyms growing up and played basketball. When it would get cold.
There's worse things you could do.
Oh, there
you know what
was.
I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Nowadays, I'd love to hear kids breaking into the church gym.
Yeah.
Not to deface it, but to come on, that's what you want.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Oh, and the priest lived right by the gym, so they knew we were going in.
Oh,
They
yeah.
see the lights on. They knew we were there.
Yeah, no, he gets it.
Yeah.
Boy, if you're going to have a priest or a pastor run kids out of the church gym, you ought to just, if you see the lights on, somebody snuck it, you ought to go grab a chair, sit down.
Yeah.
Go in or play with them if you can play. But my goodness. Dale, what do you...
well, I remember a lot of what Jim said. It's the way our kids were. There were just a whole bunch of us, and we would play ball all the time or ride bikes.
Yep.
And have races, or even at night. There's a game called Ditch 'em, where one guy would be it, and the rest of them, he would try to catch the other guys all on bicycles.
On bikes? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and all over town. And we would walk around town with BB guns and try to shoot sparrows.
Okay.
no one said it was not an uncommon thing for people to walk around with BB guns, kids, 10 years old, and nobody would call the police, or because we didn't have any police, but nobody. It was not a big deal. It was just a regular part. We all had cap pistols and had practice drawing against each other and all that sort of thing that was supposed to ruin your mind. Yeah. And card games, marathon, where you'd have so many kids in a card game, like a hearts game, that you'd have to be 2 decks of cards together.
Okay.
Because you had so many kids playing hearts.
Okay.
And just roller skating
at
the Gala Ballroom in Independence was just a wonderful thing. Just absolutely a lot of fun, and when the kids could drive, and ice skating down at Fontana.
Okay.
I remember all that, and you just go down the West Bridge at Hazeland, and the water would be kind of melted along the ice would be melted along the edge. You jump over the melted water to get to the ice, then you would skate down the river to Fontana.
Okay.
And then you would skate. They had it cleared off with a tractor and a blade, and you skate down there, and then you skate back.
I'm getting like It's a Wonderful Life vibes,
Well,
the
actually, if you think back on it, kids that grew up in the 50s and early 60s, they lived the best because they had a lot of freedom, and they had adventures.
Sure.
Amongst themselves, and we never broke windows or stole money or did anything. We just we sometimes would sneak down in the middle of the night to pick apples off the neighbor's apple tree.
Oh wow!
And
that's horrible.
We did take a few grapes when some of the grapes were ripe, and again, that was part of the. If you saw enough movies about commandos or whatever, to sneak through the night and try to get up to somebody's grape, would go down through the woods and come back in to get a little bunch of grapes or get a couple green
stealth.
apples. Yeah. And so it was exciting. And so I think kids today, you mentioned not seeing kids playing by themselves. You always see we played by ourselves we never had any adults.
Yeah.
We just took care of it. And the older kids would take care of the younger kids. Okay. And stick them out in right field or whatever, but let them bat. And it was... sometimes you'd argue about who was safe and who was out, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it was a great time to be a kid. Yeah. Unbelievable. Down in the woods a lot, over in the ball diamond a lot, just running around town a lot. And I, like Jim talked about the ladies, and I had 3 special ladies that were my mothers away from home that just they got tired of just say, come on in. When you get here, come on in. And later on, they have coffee on it and just whatever. But just wonderful ladies.
Do you realize how foreign that's going to sound to some of the younger people that listen, say the high schoolers that listen to this and they think about their childhood? You know how foreign that sounds to
I've
them?
got grandkids, and I know that everything they do is organized one way or the other, and they don't do things without an adult there. And I don't blame them. Right. It's just a different way of living. Yeah,
it is.
And I can remember my mother talking about they would get calls on the mother's grapevine that there's a man in a car. Yep. It's a green, and he's driving around town, and you need to watch out for him. And so, and of course, I had no idea what we were watching out for, but just that he was a mean man or whatever. I don't know. But never any actual thing ever happened. But we had lots of freedom and a lot of adventures and a lot of fun that kids today they have no idea. And it used to get me because my kids would play tricks or get in trouble at school. My school kids think they were being naughty or this or that, and I said, yeah, that's nothing compared to what I was involved with. So I didn't get too excited about that kind of thing. So
you guys got to hit another level before Dale gets excited.
You're just amateur hour with you guys. So
but
I gotcha.
The as much as as we did as children, adults took care of adults as well. There was an older lady that lived behind us. Sadie Hilo was her name, and she had a giant garden in her yard. And then on the next block, she had another giant garden. This was a widowed lady. Okay. And it was neat because her job as a young woman was preparing the inside of a casket. So putting the pillows and the cushioning inside a casket. Yeah. She would tell me about that job. Freaked me out as a kid.
Oh, sure.
But she had two giant gardens, and she took sacks and sacks of produce to everybody's house. All these huge Catholic families needed food, back then. And all of a sudden, here would come Sadie, this the 70-year-old woman with bags of produce for these families.
Wow.
And it,
Wow.
so it wasn't just the kids that took care of each other. It was the adults took care of each other as well.
Wow. Yeah, I like hearing stuff like that. That's how it's done. But that's why things like that, when somebody does a good deed like that just completely selfless, it's almost jarring to hear it. You almost instantly start thinking, oh, there's got to be an ulterior motive or something. It's so refreshing to see or hear about that.
Well,
but back then it was commonplace because, man.
Sometimes I remember a lady lived next door, and I wasn't too old, but little half-inch, quarter-inch of snow, and so I shoveled off driveway, and then I went and shoveled her driveway out to scrape the snow off, and she came out and gave me 6 or 7 pennies, which is like 14, 15 pieces of candy. I mean, so every time it snowed after that, I'm over there shoveling her walk and then kind of hanging around, but she never paid me another. But she had set the hook, see, that first time.
She got you.
And so everybody thought I'd be, what a good boy, he shovels her walk. Well, a good boy was thinking, maybe I'll get some more pennies, so.
Yeah. What were the stores like? So when you say that makes me think of, an old general store or something like that.
Well,
where there were actual, like, candies that said half a cent.
Yeah, you get 2 for a penny.
2 for a penny.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously they didn't say
And you
half
could
a
get
cent.
6 packets of Kool-Aid, which would make, 2 quarts? 6 packets for a quarter. Loaf of bread was less, because your mother could give you a quarter to go get a loaf of bread, and there'd be 2 or 3 pennies left where you could get little penny candy, little peppermints or root beer barrels or that sort of thing.
Wow.
So, yeah, we had a little grocery store, and I think, there's a Smitke that lives in, Eldon Smitke, lives in Fairbank.
Oh, yeah.
And he ran it for a while. The Vaughter brothers had it, and then I think he had it after that.
Yeah.
But it would just go in and it was much bigger than this basement.
Yeah.
But
I
had
think
the
he was
grocery, had a
in
meat
Parkview.
counter at the back, and then as you checked out, you could get penny candy or whatever. And a friend and I, he would come in from, he lived in the country, he'd come in, and we'd play ball or whatever. Then we'd go to the grocery store with our nickel to get a popsicle. We'd week after week in the summertime. So we go in there one day and we get our popsicle. We put the nickel down, and the lady there says, "Oh, I'm sorry, boys, but those are 7 cents now." Ooh. And we go, "Oh, we didn't realize you ever could raise the price." So we looked at each other and finally said, "Well, you just go ahead and take them this time, but it's going to be 7 cents in the future."
Yep.
Oh, can you imagine a price raise? 2 cents. That was the price raise, but.
That's earth-shattering to
well,
a
yeah,
kid.
it was, yeah, and
what was a gallon of milk back then? What do you remember being the lowest price, guys?
I guess I don't remember, but it wasn't very much.
I can tell you, prices got out of control when Dale. This is how much older Dale is than I am.
Oh, here we go.
I could get a Mountain Dew and a Snicker bar for 35 cents.
Yeah, and
So
I paid less than that. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about what was the lowest price of a gallon of gas that you can kind of remember?
I remember 56 cents. That's the lowest I can remember.
Yeah. Well, I remember my mother, when she got gas, she would stop and the attendant would come out and ask, and she would get $1 worth of regular.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many gallons that was, but a friend of mine, his family owned the Standard Station in Hazelton, and so there'd be 4 or 5 of us, nothing to do. We'd hang around the station. Yeah. So a car would pull in. Well, we'd run out there, and somebody would check the oil, and a couple of them would wash windows, and somebody would do the gas. And I think gas was between 25 and 30 cents a gallon. Wow. It wasn't very much at that time. But we gave wonderful service, and we weren't being paid. That was just what we did for fun that day.
Just for
fun. Work at the gas station with our buddy, whose father owned the gas station.
Yeah.
So
that was the hangout. Wow, that's cool. When you start talking like nostalgia and stuff, they label it today anything from that kind of era vintage. And have you noticed how that has just? I mean, I guess it always does, but things go out of style and then they come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like. Brainerd Hollow down here. She's always getting the vintage signs, the gas station sign that probably hung out. People go crazy for that because it reminds them of just their childhood, a simpler time, a more peaceful time, things like it just conjures these memories and things. And so I always tell people, I'll be honest with you, to move forward in our country, in our world today, I think we need to take a couple steps back. And that's not a popular opinion. Who wants to not have all this extra technology and how much easier it makes our lives? But I'm saying, okay, if we can't get rid of it, but I'm still saying there are people who are making their lives simpler and less stressful by kind of trying to get back to more gardening, more, valuing other people above themselves. I've talked to parents lately who talk about, we've built up this altar of busyness and successfulness, and it's cost us relationships and personal time and things with our kids and our families. And it's like, I think people are starting to kind of realize, I think that was kind of the sweet spot back then. Yeah. And you can't ever turn back the clock, but you can be intentional about making efforts to value those kinds of things, family relationships, serving other people, less time with technology, more time outside doing things like that. I don't see how we wouldn't benefit from that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a movement in Iowa, maybe even become legislation about getting cell phones out of the schools.
Yeah.
And some school districts have already limited cell phone use in their schools, and there's talk that the governor is going to have some kind of a push in the legislation about not having them in schools and all. Other people say you should leave it up to the individual school districts and not have a law. So who knows how it'll turn out.
Yeah.
But people are starting to see that those kids are on those phones all the time. They're not getting a lot of instruction.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I heard somebody recently call it digital dementia.
Yeah.
These kids are suffering from digital dementia.
Yeah. Well, I was saying the other day that the screen time, that it's actually hurting kids'
their ability
to learn.
Yeah.
That they're on screens all the time, and it's actually somehow causing physical problems in where it's making it more difficult for them to learn to read and that sort of thing.
Right.
And so, with every good thing, there's always some
drawback.
You got to just not go in 100%. You got to,
I'm out of interest. Dale, do you read any of your books on tablet, on your phone, on computer?
No.
All paperback, hardcover stuff?
Hardcover and I just read books.
What about you, Bubba? Do you read any of your stuff on tablets, or is it all hardcover?
No, I don't read on tablets. The closest thing I do, and I'm probably not as big a readers as you guys, I read a couple like Christian magazines, like American Family Association, Focus on the Family, stuff like that. They send me magazines, and then the Bible. But over Christmas, my wife got me in this habit of using my phone and doing the audio version of the Bible, having that playing and then I follow along as I'm reading, kind of thing. And I kind of at first I was like, oh, that's not really reading. That's not really quiet time, with the Lord in the Word. But it helps you, instead of your mind wandering sometimes, because you're hearing, you're almost following along as the guy is talking. So you can't. It's a lot harder to let your mind wander at that point. Whereas if you're just reading, all of a sudden you can find yourself thinking about something else and you're going line after line. And so that has actually kind of helped me a little bit. But no, I don't really read. I mean, I guess I get information off the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I do a lot of that.
There's a, you're taught in college as an educator, there are three types of learners. There's visual learners, and there's audio learners, there's kinesthetic learners, people that learn by doing
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that you may have a little audio learning about you where hearing that just supports or improves your you getting the word. It's not a bad thing.
Well, isn't that where the whole you get in trouble at school and you had to write 100 times on the blackboard, I will not, steal so-and-so's gum or whatever. Something about that repetition of seeing it, writing it, and then if they made you say it every time, it's the more senses or abilities you use to see or consume something, they say that the faster it sticks or whatever. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that for sure. Yeah. But when we're talking that old stuff too, another thing I noticed is we're all, not as big on the digital presence with our podcasts and stuff, but these people have developed these social media sites that are all dedicated to, my childhood was the 80s and 90s. And there are a few different sites that people are putting content out there, just short little videos, and they're bringing back to my memory by showing me videos of toys and things from the 80s. And these people get thousands of views on these little posts because they're showing me He-Man stuff or, the Smurf Christmas special from, 1984 or whatever. And it's like, sometimes you forget. until someone kind of jogs your memory of, you're like, oh, I forgot all about that,
Yeah.
you know? And it's just so cool to see that stuff. And if there's an interest for it and it's good and fun for us, it's got to be good and fun for the younger generation today to see kind of a different world. So I always think it's good to talk about that stuff and relive those memories and stuff. It's hard for me to imagine, what are kids today, what are they going to be talking to their kids about? What's it going to look like? Like, this is their old days right here with a kid with a headset gaming online with his friends. Like, oh, those were the old days. What's it going to be when he's got to, they're going to be interactive, doing stuff, in a whole virtual reality type. I don't know, which I know that's kind of already here, but.
Well, I listen to 60s classic rock and roll music, that sort of thing, and you wonder if there'll be, in 70 years, a channel devoted to music from the 2010s and this sort of thing. Anything?
No. I've talked to a lot of kids about music, and to be honest, there's a lot of people who listen to music from when I was in high school, and my dad's kind of era, and then probably your guys'. That stuff is holding. Yeah. They're saying kind of after the 90s, you still got your classic stuff, and then you got kind of the 80s, the grunge or the punk rock or whatever. After that, the stuff today, it's all hip hop and R&B, and it's not. Well, this whole kids are still listening to stuff we listen to.
Yeah. This whole Taylor Swift thing that came out in the last 2 years, I suppose, and honestly, I'd never heard of her, and so it's huge. And so I said to somebody, sing me a little bit of one of her songs. Well, they couldn't. Actually, nobody that I knew could sing me a little bit of one of her songs, so I would say, well, maybe I have heard of her. And my oldest kid is almost 50 now, but all of them could sing you a Beatles song, or they listened to that. And the two of them, they were in a trivia contest once at an organization, and it was rock music from that time. They won the contest. These older people were just amazed at these two kids. They're still in their teens then. Yeah, could win that contest. Well, I said our dad makes us listen to that in the radio. In the car. So
that same thing with my wife. She when they went on vacation, her dad would play all the country music, and so she still knows all that stuff. Pastor Clint Bunting sat in that chair for his episode. And this guy knows Motown music like the back of his hand. Yeah. That stuff. And it was actual music. Like it was like I heard a lot. Like that's kind of what the Beatles were. It said something. Yeah. Today, I just don't know. The majority of music isn't really saying much. It's
one of the worst things I ever did, meanest things, was we were going to Wisconsin to the apple orchards in the fall, and we went on a Sunday morning. And we invited, one of the kids had a friend. Well, so there's 4 kids in the back. The only radio station I could get on my AM radio in the car was WMT, Leo Greco, polka music, polka, and that kind of old stuff. And so they kept saying, change the channel. I kept saying, no. And so they had to listen to that for 2 hours or whatever all the way up there. And so I thought, well, that's probably good for them to hear this old time music. But my parents used to play that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it would be in the barn milking cows. They'd always have KOEL on with polka music time and this kind of stuff. Okay. And so I got a kick out of that.
Sure.
But, they broadened their horizons.
Yes, they look at it as suffering, but the parents should look at it as broadening their horizon.
Here's a challenge for you is, when's the last time you sat down and listened to the radio music on the radio? It's not like when we were young where there's a top 40. Yeah. I mean, and I've listened to podcasts about this. And they're saying the reason young people are listening to old time stuff is because people are using it in their TikTok stuff. Okay. And they're catching
for the background music
on TV.
Yeah, and they're catching that music, and so that they want to hear that, so they'll play that on Spotify or their Apple stuff, or they'll play it on YouTube, and they'll like it, like you say. Well, it's not like the old days. Sorry, I do that on our podcast too.
It's okay.
It's not like the old days where you listen to the radio all the time. Nope. I mean, when I do listen to the radio, I listen to news radio now.
Talk radio, sure. Yeah.
Well, I have to confess, I have dish television, and so Channel 99 is Sirius Radio. so I can listen to music from the 40s or the 50s or the 60s off, and it comes off better off the television
TV.
than it does off
Yeah.
the radio.
Yep.
And so I oftentimes listen to 60s music in the house.
Sure,
It got,
sure.
It's coming from the television.
We'll
so.
turn on 104.5, in December. All of our vehicles will have the Christmas music on, and it's on the radio. But then it stinks because we might just be going from here out to Dollar General and back, and if you catch a commercial break,
Yeah.
you're not going to hear it. So it makes you want to just pull up your playlist,
Yeah.
and that's that.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
It was interesting, though. I don't know how many. I know, Jim, you've talked about, because you're on the road a lot, where you would be coming back from somewhere, driving through the night.
Sure.
And all you get was those AM radio stations and the crazy things that those people be talking about aliens and who killed Kennedy and this sort of thing. And it's 2:00 in the morning, and this guy's, it was the mafia that killed Kennedy. Has it all laid out.
Yeah.
He said, that makes sense to me, But
Man.
I don't listen to AM radio much anymore. I'm not out that late at night anymore. But it was just so interesting how different that was. And you think, okay, who do they think is listening to this at 2:00 in the morning? Well, I am, and but who's the guy? I can't remember his name now, but he made a record album, Slim Whitkins or something.
Slim Whitman.
Yeah, he made a record album on his own and started selling it through those through commercials late at night in New York, and pretty soon he's got a million seller.
Really?
Yeah, and he says you'd be surprised how many people are up listening, watching TV at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and because that's the only time he could afford advertising time.
Wow.
And he sold 1 million copies or whatever of his albums. And
So we'll do a test. I will release this at like 2 a.m. and we'll see how many views.
I'll get up and listen, I swear. So,
Attaboy, Dale.
yeah.
Oh, that's good stuff. All right, I got a couple questions here for you guys as we're kind of hitting the 50-minute mark here. I wanted to ask you, Jim, something. You had put some stuff in your notes about coaching experiences and international opportunities. I understand coaching could be such a bigger, vital role in a young person's life than just teaching them how to play a sport. So, I'm sympathetic to that, but I wanted to give you a few minutes to kind of tell me about your coaching experiences and what you meant by international opportunities.
That 8th grade kid at 14 was so lucky to have Coach Nat Vig, as a teacher. He taught me a love for basketball. He would come on Saturday mornings and pick us up at our house, and he taught me to love basketball, and I carried that love. I coached 6-on-6 for a long time at Jessup.
6-on-6.
And when that ended in '93, I had communicated with the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C. about wanting to show the 6-on-6 game in Russia. Well, it ended in '93, the 6-on-6 game in Iowa. And so the Russians invited us to come to Moscow, and they would play us in a 6-on-6 game if we would play them in a 5-on-5 game.
Okay.
And so that was the first time we traveled abroad. We were the first women's team to go into Russia after perestroika, after the communism had fallen in Russia. There had been men's teams there, but we were the first women's team.
Oh, that's cool.
And we went in '93 and again in '94 and '95. In '95, we met the Irish national team, and we were invited to go to Ireland. And so we went twice in '96. A Jessup team, a Jessup girls team, and then an all-star team from Iowa.
Okay.
And over the years, I was fortunate enough to go 8 times to Ireland, and I met the Irish national coach and got to coach on the under-18 Irish national women's team when they went to Malta.
Wow.
And then you're a Dunkerton man. Formerly, I was helping Coach Virgil Hubden at Dunkerton
Okay.
for a while when Kayla Waskow, Sarah Waskow,
Oh, yeah.
those people were playing.
Yeah, those
And-
Moscow girls.
Yeah, and that was in 2008, and I wanted to travel again. And so I thought, I want to go somewhere unique. So I contacted FIBA, the Federation International Basketball Association.
Okay.
The FIBA teams for North Korea, for Cuba, and for the Ivory Coast. And then we went to state tournament, and I hadn't heard anything from them. And I got back from the state tournament, and I checked my email at school, and the Ivory Coast contacted me to come and run a coach's clinic in the Ivory Coast.
Okay. Wow.
And so I had a chance to go to the Ivory Coast and work for 2 weeks and get real sick there.
Nothing from the other two?
Not in Ireland, not in Russia.
North Korea? You didn't go?
No, I was never offered to go to North Korea or Cuba. You know, I would have liked to went to a warm area like Cuba. But they never invited me to Cuba either. So.
Oh man! Yeah,
So,
well, I saw a movie or something, and I didn't realize 6-on-6 girls basketball was a thing, and then you realize, oh yeah, it's got this whole
beautiful.
history,
Yeah.
and they made a movie about it and everything.
The first time I ever heard of Gillespie was I was talking to Wayne Kramer, who was the head girls basketball coach. And he said, oh, they hired a guy to teach in high school, and he's going to be the assistant girls basketball coach. I said, oh, yeah. He says, he already sent me a whole bunch of plays to look at.
Bastard him.
Okay, well, this guy's a go-getter then. So and there he is right there, Mr. Basketball.
And I tell you who I learned the game from, and it was Wayne Kramer. Wayne Kramer, actually, Wayne lives on my road. There's about 5 people that lives on the road I live on,
Okay.
and Wayne is one of
Yeah.
them. And Wayne was one of the best practice coaches I've ever been around, and he taught me so much about basketball. I have no idea why I was sending him plays, but
Yeah.
We were
but,
trying to show him, I guess,
Yeah.
that you were willing to work.
Oh, that's funny. That reminds me of like Remember the Titans when the one coach says, I got some special plays, some trick plays we won the state championship with, and Denzel is like, like I need these.
Yeah.
I'm the head coach. You're not. But yeah, I had Brian Brungard on, and he won a state championship with Dunkerton, and that was cool listening to him talk about what it was like being a high school athlete and getting to the state tournament and the pressure and all that stuff. And yeah, that's good. Basketball, sports.
That was quite a team.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, it was. Okay, my last couple questions I got to ask you guys. You're retired. I've never really think about retirement. I feel like the world is changing so much that, I think when I was a kid, I heard terms like balanced budget and retirement age 55, and it just seems like both of those are long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so too.
So I just always imagined I'm going to work, pretty late, in my years. But now that I'm 43, I'm actually me and my wife just did the math the other night, and we realized like we're gonna have our house paid off. I can't remember if we keep going at the rate we're going, we're gonna have our house paid off in like 13 years. And it's like, oh my goodness, like we own this house, like with 122 more payments, we're gonna own this house or whatever. And so it kind of got me thinking about retirement a little bit. Like maybe it's not that far fetched, maybe I can have enough money socked away. But as a couple of retired guys, is it as nice as it sounds? They both look at each other.
I tell everybody if I'd have known how good retirement was, I'd have retired at 30. It was that it's that good.
Okay.
It is. You have to get used to it. And Dale can talk more about this. He's been retired
A lot longer
than I have, but it took me a couple of years to get used to it.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I am the type of person, and Dale is really good at this. He's incredible at this. I like to volunteer. I like to, that's what I like about the Art Center is I can give my time there.
Okay.
I like to be on committees. Not that I know more than others, but I'm not afraid to help people. And so when you do retire, you have more time to volunteer and help people.
Sure.
And I like that. I'm a big fisherman, and I live 200 yards from the river. I love the woods, and so I
So you do the fun, the downtime.
Yeah.
You enjoy that, but you also, to stay active,
but
you got to do something.
See, I live in the woods. You know, it's not like where you've got to get in your truck and load your stuff up and go. I can just walk out of the house and walk 200 yards, and I'm there.
Man,
you know,
yeah.
it is. You know, I'm so fortunate. You know, one of my New Year's resolutions is to write gratitude each day.
Yep.
And I do that. And one of them recently was I love where I live. You know, I'm so lucky to live where I do.
Yeah.
I live in a small house. I have 800 square foot house. But
Wow.
there's woods around me. The closest person is a quarter of a mile away. I don't have to worry about people bothering me.
Sure.
And so retirement is great. You know.
Oh, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear. What do you think, Dale?
That's the way I grew up. Is I lived in a house, and the woods was right behind my house, and there was a stream down there to fish in and this sort of thing. I skate on, and so that's the way I grew up, just right next to the woods and everything. And I guess I wanted to say too that people associate me with the Steve Brown Art Center because of this podcast, but 95% of it is Gillespie. I signed on to do the podcast,
Okay.
and that's it. Gillespie does everything else, and so I
Okay.
want people to realize that the Steve Brown Art Center is him,
He's-
and I'm just
okay.
helping him in this one way.
Okay.
Well, we put help in quotation marks, whether I'm helping him or not. But, yeah. Well, you know, you think about how nice it is. You sit at home, and first of every month, IPER sends you money. Social Security sends you money. Your annuity sends you money, goes in your bank account. You don't
Okay.
even touch it. You get it. You buy things with a card, so you don't have to touch it then. And it's sort of like living with absolutely no worries about financial security, because by that time your house is paid for, your vehicles are paid for, so you have no super big bills.
Yeah.
So if you watch what you're doing, it's a very nice way to live.
Sure.
But you also sometimes you see all these people going to work every day, and you think, they're contributing something. And I'm sitting here watching an old movie on TV.
Okay.
You lose that feeling of part of what's happening in the world is because I'm helping do it.
Sure.
And I'm not helping do anything now. And so it sometimes that does bother me.
Sure.
That you're not exactly a parasite on society, but you're not actually contributing anything except being a wise old man. If anybody has a question, you're glad to answer it for 4 or 5 hours. So
Sure.
Dale's being awful humble there.
I'm the most humble person I know.
You've worked your whole. I had a pastor tell me this about going bald and the gray hair and all this, and everyone today, they do everything they can to stave off the wrinkles and the hairline and all that. And he goes, "Why? You've worked your whole life to look like this."
Yeah, you can tell Gillespie and I have given up that fight. Yeah, so,
yeah. But it's a badge of honor. Like, when you get to the point, like, it should be an honor for you to know, hey, I can get up, have my coffee, read a little bit, go for a walk, do whatever. Then I got a meeting, or I'm going to go help serve at the chili supper or whatever. And that's all you did for the day. You worked your whole life to get to that
20
point.
minutes and you're done. See.
I understand.
Dale is a giver, and the neat thing, he's involved in the church, he's involved in the community, he's involved in the arts center, he's involved with the veterans. There's a lot of things that Dale does. He can say, he feels guilty. He gives a lot.
There you go. Yeah.
So
I'm going to have to buy a bigger hat if I'm around you. That's nice of you to say. Thank you, Jim. So
there you go. Well, guys, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we covered the stuff we covered and got you guys to open up a little bit about some of that stuff. And yeah, if I didn't say, for the people watching at home, Dale, give them a good look at the camera at your hat. That's the United States Marine Corps hat. Dale talked about his service, took advantage of the GI Bill and stuff, and made his service work for him, and got his degree afterwards. So I appreciate your service. Thank you very much. If you guys aren't in the habit of doing that, whenever you meet a veteran, always tell them thank you. You don't know what they've gone through, what they're still maybe dealing with, but the fact that they signed up for the military, that benefits you. regardless of anything else. So be sure and tell them thank you. Well, that'll do it for part one with Jim Gillespie and Dale Rueber, the Steve Brown Art Center and the Steve Brown Art Center podcast. I hope their story and the trip down memory lane we went down for a while, I hope that encouraged you, maybe even enlightened you or challenged you. Hopefully at least made you think a little bit, and that's kind of my goal. It's get people thinking with this podcast. Everyone has a story to tell or an experience to share, and that's what we do here. We let people share what life has been like for them. There's no wrong answer to that question. But this isn't the end of their episode. There will be a part 2 next week. We'll get into their segments, have some laughs, maybe talk about some more serious stuff. I think Jim wants to talk about the 9 steps to success, and then some story about a $200 1966 Chevy Impala. One of these guys used to idolize Bill Walton, and one of them also has a near-death experience. We're going to get into all that next week, so you don't want to miss it. Be sure to come back. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. Share it with your family. I mean it. As soon as I wrap this thing up, as soon as it's over, copy the link and share it with somebody. I challenge you. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Leave us a 5-star rating, or if you're on YouTube, I guess you give a little thumbs up. Click that bell to get notified of new episodes. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You might see an embarrassing reel or some pictures or maybe some more encouraging stuff. Share with all your friends on your social media. If you want some of our merch and you want to show off your impeccable taste, just email me, whatisuppodcast@gmail.com, and we'll hook you up. If you need help with something or you want to talk deeper, maybe about something that came up here today, or you got questions or concerns, reach out. I'll respond. I'll help any way I can. Obviously, these guys got time on their hands. They are willing to solve all your problems.
Every
okay?
one of them, yes.
So reach out to me. I'll get you in touch with Jim and Dale if that's appropriate, and they'll help you out if they can. So, guys, I thank you so much for listening. All your support means a lot to me and my family. Lord willing, I'll talk to you on the next one.